Shalash, the Herald of Beauty. What's her story so far in the Stormlight Archive? Let's find out. Hey guys, it's Christian from Lost in Discovery. Welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be talking about Shalash, the Herald of Beauty, and her story from the Way of Kings all the way up to the end of Oathbringer. So there are spoilers for the main 3 books as well as the novella Edge Dancer. So if you aren't up to date with the Stormlight Archive, please leave this video right now. There are no spoilers for Rhythm of War though, so if you have not read the preview chapters, you're all good to watch this. So as I've spoken in my other videos about the heralds and specifically Nail, I've mentioned that all the heralds are kind of the leader of a certain aspect of surge binding, and Shalash is the leader of the Light Weavers. Another fact about Ash is she is also the daughter of Jezrien, who's kind of seen as the king of the heralds, and for most of this video I'm going to be referring to her as Ash because people who know her and throughout the story, a lot of the time she's referred to just by the name Ash, and it kind of keeps things a little easier. So even if you haven't really spotted her appearances in the main series because they're kind of in the background until Oathbringer, one thing you will hear is kind of the exclamation Ash's eyes. A lot of people do say that as like a kind of shocked, like oh my god kind of phrase. And even if she's not in a scene, one thing you'll notice if she has been there, what she does is destroys depictions of herself. She destroys paintings of herself, she destroys marble statues of herself. It's kind of her main mission in life to get rid of all the depictions of her. I'm pretty sure this is because she feels extremely guilty about abandoning the Oath Pact. This is her kind of obsessive way with dealing with that guilt. As I've spoken about in my other videos, all the heralds, they've kind of slowly gone crazy over these many years. They each kind of all have their own side effects, and Ash's is destroying depictions of herself. So let's get started with the video, and we're going to break it up into sections for each book, and we're going to start with the Way of Kings. So in the Way of Kings, the first appearance of Ash is in actually one of the interludes. So this interlude is called Baxil, and we're following the perspective of a man named Baxil and his companion Av. And these two guys are helping a woman who is Ash, and they are breaking into a palace. These guys have no idea they're actually serving a herald. They just know she's extremely beautiful, and they're kind of gawking and gushing over her. They know she's not to be messed with pretty much, and they just refer to her as mistress. So the home or palace that they're breaking into belongs to Ashno of Sages, and this guy was a prime of Emil, and Emil is a section of Rosha, and he was sort of like the religious / political leader of it for some time. So he's extremely rich and extremely influential and powerful. So of course in his palace he's going to have depictions of the heralds. So throughout this chapter, Ash is destroying paintings of herself, and it ends with her bashing a statue of her, and the boys kind of freak out like that's going to make a lot of noise, but they aren't going to tell her because they're kind of freaked out. And when you read this for the first time, there's basically no way you can figure out it's her. You know it's important for some reason, but you can't pinpoint why exactly. Let's move on to Words of Radiance, and this is the book where Ash is probably mentioned the least in the series. She's only mentioned really in the prologue of this book, at Gavilar's feast from the perspective of Yasna, and Yasna passes 2 men having a serious conversation, which again, when I first read it, I'm like, this is important, but I didn't piece it together till much later. So I've mentioned this in my previous video, but having this conversation is confirmed Nail, the Herald of Justice, and perhaps it's theorized by process of elimination that he's with Kalak, a different herald. And their conversation goes like this. I'm worried about Ash. You're worried about everything. Yasna hesitated in the hallway. She's getting worse, the voice continued. We weren't supposed to get worse. Am I getting worse? I think I feel worse. It seems like Kalak is quite a worried herald. He's a bit panicked, and Nail is kind of the smooth, calm and collected one. It seems like these guys have seen evidence of Ash at the feast, probably destroyed paintings or destroyed statues of her. She's probably going overboard, and they're starting to think like, man, we are really unraveling as heralds, what's going on? The next mention we see of her is actually in Edge Dancer, and it's so fun to pick these out because you kind of get a sense of where she's been hopping around on Rosha. And it's when Lift is breaking into the palace of Asmir, and as she's going through a chase scene and using her awesomeness to slip and slide around, she finds herself in a very opulent room in the palace and sees a very beautiful depiction of the heralds, and she thinks to herself, Lift thought, someone scratched a face off of that one. who drew in a painting like that, and such a fine one? The heralds, all in a row. So immediately you're like, that's Ash, she's been to this palace as well, so she's very busy making sure she destroys as many depictions of her as possible. This is kind of her drive. Alright, let's move on to Oathbringer, and this is where Ash really comes to the forefront in the main story, and it really solidifies her as a potential main member of the cast of the Stormlight Archive. Now, the first appearance of Ash in Oathbringer is in one of the later interludes, and we're following a washwoman who works for Mraize. Now, if you don't remember, Mraize is a member of the Ghostbloods who Shallan has been interacting with, and who has been kind of leading the cause, it seems, for the moment anyway. This man we could do a whole video on, but he is a world topper, he is extremely well versed in the Cosmere, and is part of a grander scheme, or a grander arc at play, whatever the Ghostbloods seem to be up to. This washwoman has a new intern named Pom, and Pom is actually Ash working undercover. Ash is looking for a very famous painting of herself, and that's why she's working for this woman. They go through this building, Ash sees the painting and rips through it, and is very satisfied with herself, saying, you know, I was looking for that one for ages, yes, I got it. The washwoman is completely shocked, and in walks Mraize himself, and Mraize is kind of like, oh, that's all it took, a painting by so-and-so? And this is actually a little Easter egg. So the in-world painter who did this depiction is named Dandos Heraldin, and this is kind of a shout out to one of the main artists of Brandon Sanderson's work, named Dandos Santos, and this guy's incredible. I've actually featured lots of his art in my videos, so that's a cool little Easter egg that Brandon has slipped into his books. Anyway, Mraize is like, oh, I baited her in, perfect. And she's offended by this, she's kind of shoving him out of the way, and on her way out, Mraize says to her, I know where Talon is. She freezes. The chapter kind of ends there. So Mraize is aware of where the Herald Talon is. If you don't remember who Talon is, he's the Herald who came back at the end of Way of Kings, who finally broke from the torture after 4,500 years. For more information of the basic idea of the Heralds, please go watch that video of mine. Okay, we skip forward even further into Oathbringer, and we jump back to Ash in Talon City, where the battle is going down, and she's received a tip from Mraize that he is in the area of Talon. So she's kind of thinking to herself, man, I hope this guy wasn't lying to me. If he was lying, even though she's on a very clear mission to find her friend and fellow Herald, she can't help but scratch that itch of destroying depictions of herself. It says in the book her fingers itched, she couldn't move on, no matter how desperate her task, until she'd done it. She had to destroy these depictions of herself, and she tries to stop herself from looking at them so she can get on with what she needs to do. And she's seeing the destruction that Odium is causing on Rosha, and she's completely shocked. She has seen that he's bonded them with corrupted Spran. She sees that he's brought on a storm, and she's like, how the hell did he do that? And it says in the book that she herself had no energy to care any longer about what was going on. She's so exhausted after thousands of years of being alive, supposedly, so she's just done. She can't, she's almost given up on the entire situation. Ash soon finds Talon in the midst of everything. He's cowering and whimpering whilst this battle is going on. It's hinted that Ash and Talon were in a relationship in prior years, because we get this line as she finds Talon. Thousands of years could come and pass, and she could lose lifetimes to the dream, but those hands, she'd never forget those hands. She's talking to him, she finds him on the ground, and she's kind of waking him up out of his daisy state. Talon starts asking her, like, how long has it been? How long has it been? How long did I hold out with the torture to stop the next desolation? And Ash is like, it's been 4,000 years, man. It's been 4,000 years. Talon smiles, and he's just like, that's amazing. We've given humanity so much time to recover. They've gotten past the Bronze Age. Like, they've come so far, and they will actually stand a chance against the desolations to come. Ash just can't handle this. She's like, you have to hate me, please. You have to hate me. And she's begging him because she feels so much guilt for her and the other heralds that walked away that day 4,000 years ago and left Talon to get tortured in Braze for all those years. She's begging him, please hate me, please blame me for this, because I need to get like some sort of closure and acceptance from what we've done as the Heralds. And then Talon urges Ash, like, we've got to go, someone's waiting for us. And Ash is like, who is it? And he just simply says, I don't know. So we're teased with this bit of information. You're like, who is it? Now we need to quickly pause and move on to what's happening with Moash, because this plays deeply into what happens in the following scenes with Ash. As I mentioned earlier in the video, Jezrien, known as the King of the Heralds, is actually Ash's father, and Moash is tasked by one of the fused Parshendi to kill Jezrien. It's an awesome line. They're like, we know you've killed the king, but are you prepared to kill a god? And you're just like, oh god, what's gonna happen? So Moash is sent to find Jezrien, and Jezrien's kind of like a madman. He's like a drunkard, completely out of his mind. Moash is given a very different and unique blade to kill Jezrien. This is no shard blade, this is no regular blade, this is something else entirely. So Moash approaches Jezrien, who's on the ground kind of muttering to himself, completely insane, and he ends up stabbing him. As Jezrien is getting stabbed, he kind of comes to consciousness, because this is not a regular death. He knows there is something different happening here. He knows this is the actual end for him. And Jezrien notices that this blade is different. It's taking me, the man screamed, then looked down at the knife in Moshe's hand. What is that? He completely dies. It seems like a part of his soul, his essence itself has been destroyed. Well, that part just ends on that note. Alright, cutting back to Ash. So now we go back to Ash leading Talon to wherever they were meant to be going. Talon has kind of faded out of consciousness and he's back to his ramblings, and Ash is getting very emotional and seeing the loss of her lover slash friend all over again in front of her eyes. As Ash is leading Talon and seeing his mind kind of wilter in front of her, she thinks to herself, Ishar will know what to do. And Ishar is another herald that I've briefly mentioned before, and this is a herald that Nail really looks up to as well. So he seems to be sort of a father figure, or one of the leaders of the heralds, because Ash seems to trust him as well. It seems like what Moash has done in the previous scene connects chronologically to right now, because in that moment she has a tough pain in her chest. Talon falls like a puppet with his strings cut. She is like, oh my god, what has just happened? Like, she felt a part of her get destroyed. So this is a hint that the heralds have a certain connection to each other, or at least a connection to Jezrien. This is not confirmed, but if they're all getting affected physically by this sort of shattering of his soul, it suggests that they're all connected in some way, more than just in a camaraderie sense. And this is where it just gets crazy. Yasna starts approaching them as they have fallen to the ground, and they're calling for help, they're calling for medical attention. Yasna looks at them, and then she looks down at a paper she's holding, and it's a perfect depiction of them. And Ash thinks to herself, that's his drawing style, a part of Ash noticed. Why has Midias been giving away pictures of us? If you're aware of a lot of things in the Cosmere, you'll know that Midias is one of Hoid's names. And if you don't know Hoid is also Wit. So Wit / Hoid is connected and has a relationship with the Herald. So you just got so much information in a short period of time, and all these connections. And it ends with the first time in thousands of years, Ash went unconscious, and that's the last we hear of her up to Oathbringer. So there you go, that's Ash's story from the Way of Kings all the way up to the end of Oathbringer. Man, I think it's just so fantastic how Sanderson starts her off in an interlude, some more mentions in passing, and slowly weaves her into the main story. Now, it's said that she's going to become one of the main characters in the back half of the 10 books, and I'm really keen to see what part she and the other heralds have to play in the greater story of our main characters. I hope you found that really, really useful or interesting, and it kind of gives you a bit of a refresher on some of the aspects of the story before Rhythm of War comes out in a few weeks. I'll let you know that this is part of my series Countdown for Rhythm of War, so I'm making a Stormlight video every Saturday all the way up until the release. because I just want to generate as much hype as possible, and I just want to talk to you guys about it as much as I can. I also wanted to thank you guys and the people from Reddit for your amazing support for my last video with my dad reading The Way of Kings. If you haven't checked that out, I think you'll really enjoy it. It's a pretty fun video. He's about a third through Words of Radiance, so I'm sure it won't be much longer until we make our next video, so please do stick around for that. As always, thank you so much for watching. Subscribe if you would like to see more, and please like the video if you did enjoy it. Also, say hi in the comments. I'd love to meet more of you guys. Thank you so much, guys, and I'll see you all in the next video.